But one of the big stories was McLaurin looking like Terry McLaurin again. 14 targets, a season high, a career high, 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. He scored in back-to-back games. The game he came back originally from this injury to play in was that Chiefs game where he had the awesome play in the end zone, the really nice play on the sideline where he got hurt again. But this is now 2 games in a row, and it's the only 2 games he's played since week 3, frankly. So I get that that's an issue where he's done Terry things. But Danny, I find the entire relationship right now that this fan base and everybody has with McLaurin to be fascinating, because there are the diehard fans that, all they care about is who's wearing burgundy and gold and are they on the field. And like every time the team's in the red zone, there's a third down, they're chanting Terry, Terry. And then there's a lot of people we hear from on the phones who have kind of decided they're keeping it moving. They don't feel the same way about him after him for the first time in his career, not being team first and doing some diva stuff to try to get paid. I didn't have a problem with it. I think it's business, but a lot of people did. Now he has this great game again, and I just find the juxtaposition of it all really interesting.
This is such a fascinating case study in this sort of deal, right? Because you mentioned it. There are some who don't understand how team things work and salary cap sports work and just yell, pay him, like as if you're supposed to go above the market and make an irresponsible contract happen because he's Terry or something, when that's not the reality. Then there are those that are going, he's selfish, he should show up to work. That's also not the reality. The truth is always kind of somewhere in between, right? We have to, we try to live in a world of nuance and understanding that there are push and pull. There's always trade-offs. But the falling out of favor to some degree for a guy that was the golden child has been clear. I mean, I think that's a thing, right? Where the bloom is off the rose to some degree, especially given how disappointing this year was. And you can really trace the bad vibes, the bad juju, whatever, to that prolonged battle that went way deeper than it should have. Whoever you want to blame, the answer is yes. It's totally fine. And then his unbelievably disappointing and exasperating season where it's one step forward, then he doesn't play for a month. And we've done that twice. And now it's over with. And here he comes back reminding you all, hey, if everything was normal and I was myself, we probably wouldn't be 3-9. See you guys later.
But see, you just said at the end what I think is most important. I think him falling out of favor while it was brought on by the summer can be undone and can be fixed so easily. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to play. That's it. If this guy's on the field, he's going to produce. And if he produces, people forgive you. It's not like he committed a crime.
Right.
It's not like he got in trouble for doing something terrible off the field. This is a really, really good guy. This is a true professional, legitimate mensch of a human being. This is a guy that does all the right things. You'll want your son to grow up to be like him. You want your daughter to date a guy like him. Like, that's what we're talking about here. A model citizen type. And has his relationship with the organization changed? Absolutely. I think his relationship with the media has changed a little bit. He's gone major stretches where he hasn't spoken this year. This is a former multi-time, good guy award winner. And frankly, let's be honest, it's easier to go out and talk to the media and to be the good guy when you're going for 1,100, 1,200 yards than when you are being questioned because you're constantly hurt and you're holding out and the coverage of you is more negative. So obviously you're not going to be quite as amicable, friendly, whatever. But this is a really, really, really good person in a situation that got sidelined. That's the way I view this. And I do think, as you've seen in the Chiefs game, and maybe more accurately in this game, he still got it. Like, he can still play. This is not someone who hit the age 30 and ran into a wall and he's not going to play at a high level anymore. So whether it's the rest of this season, which I think is very possible, if he goes out and scores 4 touchdowns in these final 6 games and puts up an average of 85 yards a game or something, you go into the offseason with momentum and it's a completely forgotten thing. Everybody's chanting your name as you walk out to the training camp practice field for day 1 of practice next year in what is frankly probably going to be his final season with the team. I think that's where we're headed here, is that next year's the last year. But if he goes out and has a 1,100, 1,200 yard season where he just acts like Terry McLaurin every single week, I think you let bygones be bygones. Think about this like a political figure. His approval rating. His approval rating was always a 99%.
Was really high, yeah.
I think the rock bottom of his approval rating may have been, if it was at, say, like 52% when he signed the deal, and it goes back up to 65 or 70% because a lot of people say, okay, it's business and it's in the rearview mirror. Then he gets hurt multiple times. You go into the year and Jaden Daniels doesn't have him and he regresses and the offense misses him and it regresses and the season gets off the rails and his injury is a big reason why. his approval rating probably bottomed out at like 35% or something, but it's back up around 50. And I think there have always been that loud minority that are going to chant Terry every time they have the ball in the red zone.
Sure.
They're not going anywhere.
Right. He is whether it's his fault or not, a microcosm of this season, though. Right. No one's doing this for Noah Brown because he didn't hold out or hold in and go through the whole shenanigans and have a press conference at Eastern Motors where your job's your credit. The whole offseason was about Terry McLaurin and the expectations of this team that they were carrying that they earned, quite frankly. It's good to have expectations because people expect you to be good. They're excited. You went to the NFC title game last year, and Terry was one of probably, you don't have to go too far for the reasons why. He was spectacular, had his career year for a team that did more than any Washington team had done in more than 3 decades. But he was the offseason story. Then when it doesn't go great, not even go great, when it goes as bad as it could possibly go, and you're not playing, you're not helping, regardless of whose fault it is, he's going to be kind of the poster child for that, which whether that's fair or not, that's the reality. And that comes with the expectation.
Grant and Danny on the Fan. We'll give away Leonard Skinner tickets to somebody in 22 minutes ahead of the Beltway Blitz. Let's go to the phones. Elijah's in D.C. on G&D. What's up, Elijah?
What's going on, Grant and Danny? Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, buddy.
I wanted to talk about 5, but I know we've moved on, man. I'm happy for my man Terry. He's legit, and my dad told me this as a kid. He said people only remember you from the last thing you've done. Unfortunately, you could have done, whatever. But it's
so true
for him to have an opportunity just to remind everybody what a legitimate one looks like. How on time was this offense? And just to see them really operate on time that you just can't even quantify like how important having a number one bona fide guy, certain looks just against one of the best defensive backs in the league, certain things he was able to do. You just kind of got to observe and say, Debo was able to play within his ability, what he was supposed to do. So you kind of just got to kind of pump the brakes on some things because we didn't get the best look. And
look at Ertz.
Ago,
look at what Ertz was able to do. 10 for 100. He said after the game, basically had more operating space in the middle of the field than he's had all year long. And we've wondered, he's been much better lately, 40 yards in a bunch of games in a row. But this has not been last season, Zach Ertz. Right away, 10 for 100. He's got more space. He's getting an ideal matchup against the nickel corner where he's too big, or against the linebacker where he's outrunning those guys or boxing them out and plastering them a little bit. Terry just changed everything in terms of the matchups that guys were getting. But you're right. It's just a really good reminder. As I said on the show yesterday, we've talked a bunch about who's the biggest injury this year other than Daniels. And I've had different answers at different points. There's only one answer, though. It really is McLaurin, and it's not that close. Matt and Manassas, what's up?
Hey, I was just wondering, did they so thoroughly win the negotiation with Terry that they put themselves in a position where they've got to do it again next year? Or is that, like you said, maybe next year is just the last year and he goes on? They won the negotiation too much so that, we can get out of this real easy. But is it so easy that now they're sort of, if he has a great year, you're like, we got to do this again?
It's an interesting question.
It's a great question. So they have an off-ramp after this year. Talking about the team, they're under no obligation to cut him. They don't have to. They've got him for a fairly affordable deal, I would say, if he does have the kind of year that everybody's talking about at this moment, where you don't have to get rid of him. You would have some cap savings, but you would have a dead cap hit. You could retain him, and this wouldn't be a thing. We only talk about it as a team win because they have that out. They're not going to be sitting left there holding the bag. You would think the worst it can be is maybe one more year of Terry McLaurin. Let's just say this happens again, not this coming year, but the year after. You go, that's a bummer, but you'd be able to wash your hands of it. It's not one of those. They're counting down the days Steven Strasburg till they don't have to pay him.
Yeah, I mean he's going to be on the team next year. Let's start there. There's way too much dead money otherwise, and there's no reason not to bring him back anyway. It's an $18 million cap hit next year, which for your top wide receivers, nothing. It's only $500,000 or so more than what he was against the cap this year. And the dead cap would be $42 million you'd have to spread out to do anything else. So he's on the team for 2026. The question is the out in 2027, which they will take before his cap numbers are 34 and 39 million. At that point, there's 18 million in dead money that you can divvy up over a couple of seasons. You're going to probably eat some cash. I don't know what the penalty would be to trade him, but if he plays well next year, it might be very possible at 32 that somebody would trade him The problem is going to be trying to trade that contract, because you'd essentially be trading like a 2-year deal for what would be right around $73 million or something crazy like that. That's just hard to imagine being able to move at the receiver position. So you're probably going to have to eat some money there, but you move on and you'll have another wide receiver one likely after that. But he's going to have to just show up and work next summer. Not to mention, you now know you can't play chicken with Adam Peters in this team, because they're not going to blink. So you saw what it got you this year, not the money that you wanted, and a worse season probably. You're doing that again?
Yeah, that's not something anyone willingly should sign up for.
I'd bet on a much better year for him next year, even though he'll be a year older.